This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
Hey, this is Brian Peña. I always join the Vito podcast, the best podcast in the United States.
I was trying to get it out here. I want them dead presidents. I want to pull up, head spin, get flat. I got 6 jobs. I don't get it. I don't get it.
And we are still not tired on Two Bad Hombres. I'm your host, Vito Jerome Churko, along to my usual sidekick and partner in crime, that is the Doc from Doc and Jock, John Charles Matt Goroon. John, how's it going?
Vito, welcome to the weekend. Always enjoy our conversations. What do we got upcoming on this very fine podcast?
We got to talk to Ty Duffy of Awful Announcing, and we'll talk to him about Donald Trump a little bit, about Jemele Hill, what she said via Twitter about Donald Trump, the NFL anthem protesting, which really isn't an anthem protest, by the way, which a lot of people are trying to, get spread out there to the masses more and more, and I think rightfully so. But before we get into that heavy stuff, more heavy stuff and serious stuff regarding Las Vegas, the deadliest mass shooting in U.S. history occurred Sunday night at a concert, a country music concert featuring Jason Aldean. Aldean was performing when the shots came in from what I believe is the 32nd floor of this hotel/casino located in Vegas.
The Mandalay Bay Casino, Vito.
Yes.
Man, when you look at the broken windows, have you watched some of CNN's coverage, Fox News coverage? I tried early on Monday to avoid it, but in order to kind of obviously, talk about it on this fine podcast when you had expressed interest, earlier in the week I watched a lot of coverage on both news channels, and it was really sad to see regarding, what a human being is capable of doing in terms of the details. You've seen a lot of the heroic acts that people did in terms of some people were running towards the shooter, running towards the situation, trying to help cover bodies and such, and then you get the response of the police who had the unbelievable job and duty to try and protect people. Overall, it was just a nightmare to wake up to. I found out probably just like a lot of other people in that I woke up, rolled over bed, and said, "Hey, wife, where's breakfast?" And she's like, kicked me in the side and said, "You ain't getting no breakfast."
Deservingly so.
And she said, "Look, wow, there was a mass shooting." And I was like, "What?" And so on Monday, I kind of just peeked a little bit because those stories are really tough. And for me, obviously dealing in the mental health field, I hear a lot of tough stories week in and week out. So for me, I didn't dive into it and gather a lot of information for myself until Tuesday. And I absorbed a lot of information, and it was really tough. It's really fascinating to see how fast it did go political in terms of when these things do happen. You got both sides of the gun control lobby, definitely spirited by Jimmy Kimmel's passionate plea on his show on Monday evening when he was basically crying because he was a Las Vegas resident, and he implored people to say, look, it's time for us to really take a serious look at gun control and how did this individual, the 64-year-old retiree, how did he get all these weapons and how did he execute such a plan, in order to massacre that many people? Now, the deadliest mass shooting in United States history. It's just sad all around, and it just, for me, it's heartbreaking to know potentially what's going to happen to those that were there, to the families of the victims, to those that survived. So, Vito, I don't know if you're aware or not, I'm a trauma specialist. I got training in dealing with tough stuff like this, and maybe 10 years ago, I went into Detroit churches after a church shooting and helped youngsters kind of process and talk about tough things and doing some debriefing. I was trained in terms of how to formally and effectively try and work through tough stuff. And trauma is so devastating. When something like that happens, you're going to see some PTSD. You're going to see situations where some of the victims are going to have a real hard time dealing with it, especially those that survive that might have issues with their limbs, that might have long-term health problems because of this. So, people dealing with trauma, it's a long-term process in terms of dealing with it. I just hope and pray that those that need mental health services have access to it and find quality traumatic services, because without it, you might see some escalating situations. And it's just sad all around. How did you absorb the coverage when it came out earlier in the week?
As of Tuesday, really quick, 59 people confirmed dead and 527 other people have been reported as being hurt from the incident on Sunday night. And I consumed it at first when I woke up early Monday morning out of the blue, just woke up middle of the night, let's say, and the TV was on and breaking news was being spread on ABC about the shooting and everything that went down. You heard the video, the shots going off, and the automatic weapon you could tell was used by the shooter right away because of all the shots that went off one after another. And that scares me, a man being capable of possessing an automatic weapon. What's the reasoning for that? A regular citizen, average Joe possessing that kind of a weapon, and that's when these gun rights become a topic of concern and a very noteworthy topic that has to be discussed by our politicians, because I believe, as an outsider looking in, that something has to be done because a gun like that should not be owned by an everyday citizen.
Vito, I agree with you 100%. Here's the problem, though. Okay, when you start talking about dealing with something like this, if this was going to be addressed, it needed to be addressed like 30 years ago. Because what you have to factor in is, let's just say you do ban automatic weapons and you do further make it challenging. There's been a time now where all these guns are available. You're going to have to be forced then to have a war on guns and try to recover as many of these weapons that are out there illegally. And so the troubling aspect of the gun control situation is you got two equal sides that are very formidable. But it seems like to me, and maybe if I'm wrong, you can, challenge it. But it just seems like to me, the NRA has a boatload of money and has a boatload of financial support. And there are several million people who are strongly in favor of the Second Amendment, the right to bear arms. And so that side is very strong. And now you have, with each situation that occurs, you have the other side that's debating it and wondering, okay, how do we enforce stricter gun laws? How do we prevent this stuff from happening? It's just, the problem is, if somebody who is demented enough to plan this out, they probably could have access to guns illegally. And this guy was a guy that, by all accounts, had a spotless record. There was nothing on this guy. So in terms of preventing it, yes, you can prevent, smaller scale murders. You can prevent other criminal type activities by limiting guns. But I just feel like those that have a criminal tendency are going to find ways to get guns illegally because there's so many out there. I don't see a scenario in which gun control now is going to prevent anything further. If somebody has that in them to be able to pull a gun on somebody else, I don't think that laws enacted by the government are going to do anything to stop it.
And because a man in his right mind, doesn't commit an act of violence like that, too. He was mentally deranged, obviously, to go forward with such an act, to kill so many innocent people. And you know what? To really be strong with the criticism here, you see these people that are mentally deranged, and you feel bad that they have to affect others. It's bad enough. I know they're affected, and they're not right of mind, and you feel bad that they are like that in that current state. But, God, does somebody like that have to go through with that kind of an act and kill so many innocent people and harm all those lives when I get your life was bad, but you can't, I guess you can't tell these people, right? You can't tell them, right? When they're not mentally all there and they're not in the best state of mind. But man, I wish they just went about their sadness and madness about life in another way. That's just how I view it too. And that's where they could use that mental treatment, right? Mental health treatment. And hopefully more and more can be done about that to get these people right.
Now, before we get to your featured guest of this podcast, does it make you kind of worry a little bit about going outside for public events? Me and the wife are probably going to attend Hell in a Cell tomorrow night. I'm super excited. I'm super pumped. All the wrestlers that I'm fond of are going to be there. It's going to be a SmackDown brand pay-per-view at Hell in a Cell at Little Caesars Arena. I'm a little bit, though, hesitant in that my head's going to be on a swivel. I am one of those people that, is a little bit more cautious because of it, but I definitely am aware of those people that say, don't let these people win. Definitely don't live your life in fear. You have to pray and not worry. But at the same time, the frequency in which mass shootings occur, me and the wife, I have talked about it and said, how do we bring up our daughters in this world? Because my daughters are innocent. They're 5 and 3. Yeah. You can see their picture right over here over my shoulder. They're innocent girls. How do you talk about this kind of stuff with your daughters? And I just told my wife, I said, look, we're religious folks. We're the type of people that will pray. I'm going to take the stand. And one of the comments that I always tell a lot of my patients is, you can't pray and worry at the same time philosophically. So when the worry spikes up, then our prayers double. And like each and every day, I wake up and I'm thankful that I'm alive, thankful to have opportunities to have these kind of conversations with you. But it's still in the back of my mind, like, I don't want to go to an event and worry about some lunatic, some deranged individual pulling out a gun and shooting. But the wife, I love her so much. And she said, look, really, we're going to go have a good time. The wrestling community is always great. We're going to have a great time. And I'm going to get to see AJ Styles. I'm going to get to see Jinder Mahal. I can't wait to see the cage
All
match.
these guys that I know nothing about.
I can't wait to
as you're talking about them.
I can't wait to report back on how the event went. But I'm not going to live my life in fear. That's how I'm going to defeat people that do these kind of things. And at the same time, I do wish that this kind of thing did not happen. I wish that we would not have to talk about gun control and talk about, the president and the way he's reacting to different things. I just wish that we could talk about our lives and having fun and other type stuff. But it's important to talk about in terms of gun control and to have healthy debates like you and I are. We can exchange ideas, but the problem is that both sides are really planting their flags, and it's hard to come to that compromise. I mean, it does make logistical sense that these AK-47s, these automatic weapons, need to be taken out. But at the same time, though, is the government's job to remove it? I mean, look, we've had a war on drugs now. Have there been more or less people doing drugs? I would argue that, the war on drugs needs to be also reevaluated in terms of what's coming into the country and where we're going with that. So maybe it has to be at a grassroots level where people say, look, I'm not going to be a person that carries a gun. Other people, I don't know about you, but more and more, I see people just open carry here in Michigan. I see people just walking down the street with their gun in their pouch, and I'm like, whoa. But
doesn't that scare you too?
No.
Does that make you more worried when you're at an event, or actually feeling safer at an event?
When I see people like that out in the streets, I feel a little bit safer because I know that's probably a bad motherfucker. But at the same time,
but then couldn't it be a mentally deranged individual?
It could be, but that's what we tell people is you gotta pay attention.
Yes,
you can't be drunk. You can't be just lollygagging. I don't know. Did you see that picture? Oh, I don't know if you saw it. There was a dude that was, I think, inebriated or drunk in Las Vegas when the shots were fired. He kind of stood up with his middle finger up in the air, just standing there, and I was like,
well, that's the thing. People are having a good time, too, and they might have been inebriated, right? They might have been out of their mind, not knowing what was going on because they're not in a great state of mind because of alcohol or this or that while they're at the concert, and they were there to spend a good time with family and friends and to enjoy themselves, and then that kind of stuff happens, and it makes you worry going from place to place now a little bit more, from venue to venue, but you can't live your life scared, uptight, and in a box, as a recluse or whatever, and you can't just stay at home the rest of your life. You have to walk out into the open and still try to have a good time and not worry about something like this happening. And for me, my dad's going to Vegas this week. Actually is there right now. And that makes me scared after seeing what did happen in Vegas. But then you have to take the optimistic point of view, and it's that, well, if this happened this past week, the likelihood of this occurring again in Vegas is so low.
Yeah, see, that's exactly right, is that the odds say that something like this is not likely to happen to you. But you know what? I think you and I probably will do more reading in terms of preparing for something like this. I was fascinated in terms of some people's reaction in terms of jumping over the bar, running a certain way. But at the same time, we just have to educate ourselves in terms of how to, prepare yourself for something like this. If something like this goes down, how to, protect yourself and your loved ones. But just quickly, before we get to your guest, would you be a person that would run or help? Or do you see yourself, like if you saw somebody shot, staying with somebody who was passing away? There were a lot of heroes in Las Vegas, and they deserve all the credit because while a lot of people were running for their lives, other people were staying and helping those that were shot. And it's really stunning that the death toll was only 59 when you look at what this guy was doing with that arsenal that he had, just standing there shooting out into a crowd. It's really stunning, the numbers as it was.
Yeah, and the first responders, you got to give them a heck of a lot of credit, and all of those people that were brave and courageous enough to sacrifice their lives for the betterment of others and to keep others alive when the shots were coming in, kept pouring in. And for me, I don't know if I would be courageous enough in that moment to make that move to go save somebody else's life. I would like to think that I am courageous enough, but you don't know how you're going to react to a moment like that you can't game plan for. There is no game planning for that, right? That you can do in life to be ready for such a moment. There never is going to be really something that you can do to prepare yourself fully for such a moment. Because stuff like that comes at you so quickly before you truly can react and give it a lot of great thought. So to those that reacted in that instantaneous moment and manner, well, you got to give them a lot of credit for doing the right thing and for saving many people's lives that would not have been saved without them taking action like they did.
Where's your dad staying, you know?
Not over there in that area, and he'll be going to a show or two, but not concerts too, but I really don't know, honestly. I know that's not a great thing to say right now when you ask me that question, but I really don't know where he's exactly staying in Vegas.
Tell your dad a great show he's got to check out. It's called Spearmint Rhino. Unbelievable show. A lot of great female talent in
There
the
we
show.
go. I know you would like that aspect of it big time.
Yeah, so tell him to go check out Spearmint Rhino, courtesy of the Doc, and just mention maybe, the Detroit Sports Podcast Network. He might get free cover and have himself a great time.
You have so many connections over there, huh? And he's turning 60, actually just turned 60, so it's in celebration of his 60th birthday and two of his buddies who have turned 60 this year as well. So I hope he has a heck of a lot of fun and is safe. And that is key, having safe fun, and hopefully nothing like this ever occurs again. And we give our thoughts and prayers and send all of our condolences, courtesy of the Detroit Sports Podcast Network, to all of those lives and families affected by this tragic incident last Sunday.
All right, who do we have up next?
Ty Duffy of awfulannouncing.com. He writes for them, also for various sites, and he's a U of M grad and a big Michigan football fan, I know. So we'll talk about the game and a little bit of this and that with him regarding Trump, Jemele Hill, and everything else in between with Ty Duffy. Just after this quick commercial break on to Bad Hombres. Doc, we have a brand new sponsor for the Detroit Sports Podcast Network who has been a partner with us in the past, and that is Top Cat Sales, located in downtown Royal Oak, Michigan. And Doc, if you are looking for team apparel for your high school, your club sports team, or your corporation, then you should look no further than Top Cat Sales, located on the east side of Main Street in downtown Royal Oak, between 11 and 12 Mile. Through founder and former University of Michigan quarterback John Wangler's leadership, Top Cat Sales has developed a tradition of selling and distributing custom Adidas team apparel with the very highest quality and the very best service. So get your organization, your school, or your club team all in with Adidas today by emailing sales@topcatteamsales.com. Once again, the email address is sales@topcatteamsales.com. And also remember to follow Top Cat Sales on Twitter at Team Top Cat and on Instagram at Top Cat Sales.
Yeah, we coming now.
And now, joining me on this week's episode of Two Bad Hombres for some fresh feedback is University of Michigan graduate and a writer for awfulannouncing.com, Mr. Ty Duffy. Ty, how's it going?
Going well. Thanks for having me.
Hey, thanks for doing this segment with us this week, and we have a lot to talk about. But first and foremost, for those that don't know about Awful Announcing specifically, as I know you write for various sites actually, but Awful Announcing now, what does that site offer to the masses?
Well, I mean, I'm one of many writers, so I can't speak for everybody, but I think it's basically that site specifically. It's media coverage. It's, what if you're somebody who's a junkie and obsessed with the sports media and wants sort of the latest news and analysis and what's going on, gossip wise, that's the site to go to.
Yeah, you have to like your sports media, and I am a sports media nut, and I see a recent article that I told you about that I wanted to talk about on this week's episode. It's regarding Donald Trump, and it's titled, Donald Trump is baiting the sports media into the culture war he wants. Now, how did this article for you come to be?
It's just sort of a pattern that I've seen over, since, both in the sports media and traditional media, since, Donald Trump has become a major political entity. It's, he's sort of a master at picking out one issue and picking out one fight that he wants to have on his terms, and making that the story, and in his case glossing over a lot of more salient controversies. So as we saw the other weekend, he tweets about the NFL players, and suddenly it's a battle between Donald, the New York Times is running 2 or 3 stories on the front page about Donald Trump versus NFL players, and that's a battle that Trump wants to have. It's a big, it's an easy issue to rile up his base and get, people who may have seen him softening on immigration and may have soured on him a little bit back into the fold. It's just an easy controversy. And it's a controversy he wants to have versus, say his administration's response to Puerto Rico. And it's hard for the media to avoid it because you can't let him say something wrong or something crazy and not point that out. But at the same time, you can't let him the media needs to, be the ones, pointing out like, hey, Puerto Rico is happening, Puerto Rico is happening, Puerto Rico is happening, even if he's going to, start a million controversies on his Twitter feed, every other day.
Yeah, he's trying to cover up the major issues that are going on right now that need to be rectified. I mean, they're working on the healthcare reform, trying to repeal and replace Obamacare, the Affordable Care Act, that is, and it's not really going anywhere. All these attempts have backfired for the Republican Party and for Trump specifically, and it seems like him going after now the NFL about this protesting, these guys taking knees, not standing for the national anthem. Well, it's almost, and I think you said, and you agree with this, Ty, it's to cover up those larger issues that really need to be focused on major.
Yeah, I mean, he doesn't want people focusing on as you've highlighted, the various failures of his administration, whatever those may be. He wants to be having, a culture war fight, that riles up his conservative base about, he wants to be talking about, NFL players who are an easy target, not respecting the flag or the troops or the national anthem, however you want to phrase it, and have the discussion be about that versus, say, a substantive conversation about the role race plays in policing and violence with the police.
Yeah, and you know what? The real reason behind the protesting isn't anthem protesting. And I know a lot of people have taken the stance recently that get rid of that from the lexicon, from the context. And when you refer to these players protesting, it's not truly anthem protesting, but it's about police brutality. It's about criminal justice reform. And I think Senator Bernie Sanders from Vermont, I think he nailed it perfectly in this tweet in which he said, "Let's remember why NFL players started kneeling. They are talking about the need for criminal justice reform and police department reform. It's not protesting the veterans or the national anthem or the flag or anything of that sort. It's about bigger topics and issues such as that criminal justice reform, police department reform, and the need for those two things to occur and to occur quickly here in this nation."
Yeah, and sadly, because of the way this gets structured, it's going to be tit for tat, and then the media is going to cover Trump's tweets, and then they're going to cover other athletes' responses to Trump's tweets, and then those sort of broader issues, and the real cause of Colin Kaepernick's initial protests and what this is supposed to all be about just sort of gets lost in the fray, which is probably a lot of the point of Trump starting this controversy in the first place.
I totally agree with that. And this is Ty Duffy of awfulannouncing.com. On with me, providing some fresh feedback on this protesting that we've seen recently from NFL players, from other pro athletes as well. And you know what? There is this even bigger topic now of sticking to sports for athletes and for media personalities. And we've seen Jemele Hill of ESPN draw some attention because of it and get some negative feedback, but also be commended for taking a stand, and in which she called Donald Trump a white supremacist on Twitter. Now, what did you think of her taking that stance via the Twitter platform and also ESPN's reaction to it?
I mean, it's sort of a complex issue. These issues are, it's hard to avoid. You can't stick to sports if your job is specifically, like Jemele Hill's case, is to be an opinionist. It's somebody to have opinions. Your opinions need to resonate, and for the opinions to resonate, they need to be about topics that people are talking about. And everybody's talking about politics right now. If just the other day I brought up that I was a sports writer to someone, to a driver I had. And, the first topic that came up was the anthem protest, which is a political topic, not a sports topic. It wasn't, the Michigan game or whatever. So it's hard to avoid those political topics, and it's really hard to avoid weighing in when those political topics overlap with moral issues, as in the case of, race and, the president possibly being a white supremacist. I just want to say I love Jemele Hill. I think she was right here, but it's tough because you can't not, when you see some of the things that are happening, it's really hard not to say something. But at the same time, she put ESPN in a really rough spot because they've been fighting back against this narrative whether it's promoted by Clay Travis and Jason Willock or just or there's a broader conspiracy at Fox Sports, or the parent Fox company, which ESPN seems to think that they're painting ESPN as this sort of liberal, this sort of bastion. I think I said a bastion of pinko liberal politics. Mm-hmm. They've been battling back against this narrative, and there's some founding for it. There's this the Caitlyn Jenner stuff at the ESPYs. A lot of the decision makers at ESPN are liberal. The people at ESPN at ESPN who are sort of waving or moving into politics with their commentary are almost all liberal. It's still an environment. I think Bob Lee said it well. It's they've done a good job with diversity of getting different types of people on the screen, but ideological diversity where there's actually different sorts of opinions has, it's been a tougher challenge. It's mostly liberal, but you have so you have ESPN battling back against this entire narrative, which could be a serious problem for them if conservatives actually stop watching ESPN. And then, this basically, it's an ad hominem attack on the president, and it basically forces ESPN to take a stand. Either they support her and, align themselves against the president and confirm all of the narrative they've been trying to, make go away, or they criticize or punish her and get condemned from the different direction from, all the people who support Jemele Hill and support what she said and have similar politics, which is, a lot of people that work for them and a lot of people in the media. I think ESPN sort of took the only route. They tried to sort of find a third way here, which is where they disavowed her comment, but didn't disavow her. And, at least from the reporting I saw, explored taking her off the air for a day, but didn't actually do it. And it didn't really, you can understand why they tried to, split the two sides, but it didn't, it basically just irritated everybody.
Yeah, and you know what? Maybe not really taking strong action. Maybe wasn't the right thing to do, no matter what you think about Donald Trump, and no matter whether or not it carries some merit what she said in calling him out as a white supremacist, because there is that fine line you have to, I guess, weigh and just consider when you're a high-profile ESPN personality and it's a sports network. But at the same time, you know what? I commend those that defended her because we all have opinions that aren't just sports-based. And when I look at these athletes, too, that are being told to stick to sports, well, guess what? They're not just one-trick ponies or robots simply focused on the sport that they're employed through. They are as human as you and I, Ty, and they have the right to express their viewpoints via any platform they choose and on whatever they choose. And that's just my stance on athletes specifically and whether or not they should stick to sports.
Yeah, I think that the people wanting others to stick to sports, that in itself is not sticking to sports and having a political opinion. Sports have always been political. It's just it's them wanting certain types of politics, getting a voice. Just playing the national anthem at a sporting event, and supporting the troops and all this stuff is political. Mm-hmm. The military spending taxpayer money to promote the military at sporting events is political. All of so basically, everything is kind of political. And the wanting this safe space where politics doesn't have to enter your life. That's not something that that's a luxury for very affluent white people. That's not very affluent white males. That's not if you're a woman or a black person or somebody who's Hispanic, you don't have sort of a safe space where politics doesn't enter your life. It's there all the time.
Yeah, it's a fabric of society, and it's because of the existence of the First Amendment. You have the right to speak your mind, and at the same time, you know what? Maybe it's not the best opinion to express, and because of that, there will be those naysayers that go after you for your viewpoint, that don't agree with it. But that's the beauty of our nation and the existence of that First Amendment once again. And to kind of move on to something else now, more sports geared, and specifically, U of M taking on MSU. And what a big game. Always a big rivalry game, obviously, happening because of this, recording when it takes place, actually today. And who do you got in that one, U of M or MSU, and then why, Ty?
I'll sort of hedge. I think the point spread is 10 points, at least last time I checked it. I'll sort of hedge and say a narrow Michigan win. There's two ways to kind of look at this game. One is that Michigan's a top 10 team. They're the double-digit favorite. All the stats are going to tell you to take Michigan. And then you look at, what's happened in this game for the last 9 years, and Michigan State's won 7 out of 9 times. They've covered the point spread in all 9 of those games. The last time I think Michigan covered a point spread in this game was, 2007, the Mike Hart little brother game. And Mike Hart has had a 3-year NFL career and is now on his 4th, I believe, college football assistant coaching job since that happened, or since the last time Michigan covered. So I think it's going to be close. I think Michigan State's going to play hard. I'm not sold on Michigan's offensive line, and I think that's going to be, that sort of limits how much they can control the game. I think they'll do enough to win, but I think it'll be close.
And now what do you think, Ty, about John O'Korn now being the quarterback with Wilton Speight out due to injury? Do you believe that Michigan's offense is in capable hands with O'Korn?
I think we'll see how they come out after the bye week. He obviously performed pretty well once he got into a rhythm against Purdue. And, the offensive production in that game speaks for itself. I think Michigan was, had 1 touchdown and 10 trips to the red zone their first 3 games. And then I think they went 3 for 3 with touchdowns against Purdue. I still think the major issue for Michigan is the offensive line. They gave up 4 sacks and 8 tackles for loss against Purdue. Purdue was dead last in FBS in both those categories entering the game. So in some respect, I think, O'Korn's a senior quarterback. He's been in the system. Jim Harbaugh, his track record is almost unparalleled with finding quarterbacks, getting them to play. So I think they'll be in okay hands. I still think there's not a lot of you can do when the offensive line can't protect the passer and you're not getting consistent yardage and they're on an every down basis in the running game.
And Ty, I think you pinpointed it. The issues for U of M offensively are bigger than the quarterback play because it's about that O-line not playing up to par yet either. And maybe they never mesh well enough to really get it going offensively and to protect the quarterback and to get the best results out of O'Korn or Speight, whoever it may be. And obviously right now, O'Korn, and you're right, he looked mighty good in the red zone against Purdue. And that's what Michigan was looking for, and they got that out of O'Korn, so maybe he's a passer the rest of the way, but obviously it depends on the health of Wilton Speight, who we know that Harbaugh loves a lot.
Yeah, and I think one thing to consider with Michigan is that this is a very, very young team. They had the fewest returning starters in FBS. I forget the exact number. I think it was 5. When that happens, this is a very capable team. They're a very talented team, but where that hurts you is execution. And, that can kill Michigan in a lot of ways. But the fortunate thing here is if you're a Michigan fan, is Michigan State's also a very young team with very few returning starters. And, the same sort of issues with execution. I think they're red zone. They've had different troubles in the red zone, but they've struggled scoring there as well.
And Ty, thanks for all the insight this week, and we'll talk again soon.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
And what a big game we have to watch. Prime time at the Big House, under the lights. What's better than that? Michigan State, huge rivalry. And MSU has a shot, I believe.
What's better than that is potentially having a representative of Detroit Sports Podcast up there in Ann Arbor, potentially wearing his badass suit.
Ooh, we'll see about that. A nice Valiant suit jacket with the maize and blue color scheme, baby. And I might be rocking it. We'll see whether or not I do pull it out. But it's the type of game that you can definitely show who you're rooting for by wearing that.
But then you would have to preface it by saying that you're not attending as an official media member covering the game. You're going there as potentially a cheerleader.
As a cheerleader. Oh, yeah. And a hot and sexy cheerleader. Trust me. Not going to be cheering on the sidelines. Now, how big would that be if I had the chance to go cheer on the sidelines? How viral would that go, Doc?
Wait a minute. So 2 years ago, were you there?
I was. Yeah.
Trouble with the snap?
The botch snap when Michigan should have beaten MSU, did not beat MSU at home. Yes, I was there for that very game.
Now, I was delirious because, to set the stage, Doc is a Michigan State grad, Adam is a Michigan supporter, Vito is a Michigan supporter, has ties to the University of Michigan, is a credentialed media member that is in the press box in Ann Arbor. So Vito can give us some great, unique perspective on Saturday night, courtesy of Top Cat Sales. Always enjoy their sponsorship and their work with the Detroit Sports Podcast Network. Now, Vito is going to be in Ann Arbor, is going to be definitely probably taking pictures and being around the atmosphere. But set the stage 2 years ago, because I was delirious. I was at a house where it was a pro-Michigan house, and man, when Michigan had the botched punt and, the punter had an opportunity to kick it off, and all he really had to do was grab the ball, kick it, and it didn't happen. Michigan State runs the ball back with no time left as the clock hit 0. Michigan State scores the touchdown, and I was delirious. I spun like a top. Literally, everyone was shocked, and I was screaming like, oh my God, they won! They won! I was spinning like a top because I was the only one, and it was one of those games where you couldn't really cheer much. I took a lot of jabs, and it was like, oh, Michigan State sucks. Jim Harbaugh's here. Your time is over. And so for State fans, really, it doesn't get any better than a game like that. I mean, I still get delirious and excited talking about it. What do you recall from 2 years ago?
Dead silence when that play happened in the press box. Now, there's not supposed to be any cheering in the press box anyways, but I'm saying in the entire stadium, it was dead silent. And you see at times when it does get silent, but not that silent where you could hear a pencil drop. Literally, it was that dead silent at that point. And really quick, you were full of joy.
Oh, my God.
Astounded. I mean, you were even surprised, right? By what happened. And I bet, really quick, to get this in, I bet you had a Narduzzer. A heck of a Narduzzer because of MSU pulling that off when nobody thought it would happen. And I bet, like I said, once again, that you didn't even think it would happen, and in the way that it did.
No, man, it was exciting. It was one of those things where I think I must have shot off 50,000 tweets that evening at Adam, at all the Michigan supporters. It was just an amazing contest, and you were there, so there wasn't probably, was there a loud gasp in the media room? Or
there were people sighing, gasping. I mean, once again in the press box when it happened, so I think people were astounded. I don't care if you were wearing U of M colors that day or MSU colors, it didn't matter, and if you were biased or not biased. One way or the other. It didn't matter because that game and seeing that ending, that's one of legendary status that you might never see repeated again.
Maybe some homework for you is maybe that fan, that legendary fan that was caught
the Michigan
with
fan, right? That had the head or hands on his face, right?
If Michigan pulls it out tonight versus Michigan State at home, maybe we can exercise those demons and interview him and see what it's like being on the other side of it this time, because that's a legendary thing. And
yes.
He showed up in the video, and it was amazing. And
he'll never live that down. I mean, he was in such dismay, and so many fans were,
everyone,
right?
Because the shock was setting in. Michigan State won. You had Michigan State's players leaving the field, clapping,
celebrating on your home turf to make it worse.
All right, now let's bring it to 2017. Michigan's got a pretty strong chance. I mean, most people are confident in that John O'Korn is going to come in and continue his success. I mean, he's evolved in terms of what we saw last year a little bit in his time this year versus Purdue when Michigan's offense was struggling. He came in and kind of was like the ignition and literally started the offense, because under Wilton Speight, it was looking pretty dire. I was pretty confident that Michigan State could do some things. I might have been bold enough to call a state prediction outright if Wilton Speight was the starting quarterback.
So you don't believe in Wilton Speight as that passer for U of M this year, huh?
No, I feel like the offense stagnated. I feel like he kind of was missing a lot of passes. I feel like his mechanics were off, and at best, they were inconsistent. And then when John O'Korn came in, you just saw the difference. He was hitting passes, extending plays, and right now, at least, don't you feel like O'Korn's the guy?
And like Ty Duffy said, he was executing O'Korn, that is, in the red zone, where they had all those miscues before O'Korn came in the game against Purdue. Because remember, he came in the game because of Speight being hurt. So because of O'Korn's play, they got it done at Purdue. in a tougher environment than you think at this point, because Purdue is no longer a slouch. They are up and coming, so Michigan to pull that game out in the style and manner that it did, well, that's largely because of the quarterback play of John O'Korn, who doesn't have the great line or greatest line supporting him and to keep him upright, as Ty Duffy once again noted, our great guest this week from awfulannouncing.com, lending insight as he was about the game, being a U of M graduate, and I think he nailed it on the head, Doc, that it's about the O-line play too, so if Michigan State can develop some kind of a pass rush and get to O'Korn pretty heavily and consistently, then you know Michigan State has a shot to pull off the upset. But I agree with you here. I think the odds of MSU pulling off the upset at the Big House are slimmer now because of O'Korn playing and Spate not playing.
So, Vito, what do you think? How are you evaluating this contest this Saturday night?
I think Michigan State makes it close. I do like Lewerke. I like what he brings to the table. But remember, MSU, just like U of M, as Ty Duffy once again said, is young and inexperienced. And guess what? They don't have the 4 or 5-star players that U of M has. So U of M might be young and rather raw. But guess what? MSU is both of those things, plus lacking the 4 and 5-star players. So because of that note, I've got to say that U of M wins, and U of M not pulling it out will be very disgraceful and embarrassing to Michigan football fans all around the country and to Jim Harbaugh most notably, because that would mean Harbaugh in his 3rd year on the job that if he loses tonight to Michigan State, that he would have lost 2 out of 3 times against Michigan State, the rival in state to U of M, and that would not look very pretty for him in his tenure as Michigan headman.
Vito, it's one of those big games, right? Jim Harbaugh needs to continue to put pressure on Michigan State. Yes, Michigan State is a young team, but at the same time, you got to look at it is that if Michigan State can keep it close, if they can punch Michigan in the mouth for 4 quarters and stay with it, I feel like this game could be a 4th quarter game and really close. I don't see this game being a blowout, but I was telling Jason and telling other guys is that the marker for me is going to be the first team that scores 2 touchdowns. I feel like the team that gets into the end zone that second time is going to have a huge edge because of the fact that, it's going to be a tight defensive battle, and it's going to be one that it's going to go back and forth, and there's probably going to be 2 or 3 huge momentum swings. So I'm fascinated to see who's going to come out on the positive side of it, and I'm excited, man. What do you think about the nighttime contest? Any concerns at all for you? Are you going to get there early? Because for these noon games, I don't see any coverage from you till like 12:30.
Well, I'm sleeping in after a long night at the Free Press in my defense, but I don't get the best start early in the morning when it comes to those noon start time games at Michigan. Now, for this game, 7:30, I believe is the start time. I'll be there more well ahead of time to be there and to experience the atmosphere.
Do you have the same seat in your press box for spot?
Changes just a little bit, but I'm always in that very front row right next to the glass. So they don't put me like higher up. But you know what? You will see the full-fledged beat writers be on the opposite side of me, but they're also right in front of the glass. So I guess that's where they want you. That's the best vantage point perhaps then. Right? That's how they view it.
Now, do you take an elevator? Is the press box cool up there in Ann Arbor? Because I have yet to be accepted.
To be there. I know you've tried to get in. Well, for MSU games, right? More than U of M games so far, too.
So what's it like in the press box in Ann Arbor? How do you get there?
Very nice. You have some perks. You use the elevator to get up, and you're high up there. Nice vantage point, beautiful vantage point, you could say. You can really experience all of the views that you, I think, desire as a media member, and you see the play on the field most notably, and that's the most important thing that you need, right, as a media member covering these Michigan football games. So for me, I don't think I'm deserving at times of being up there, but trust me,
You're not.
Thank you. Well, hey, at least you admit it. I'll admit it too. But I'll bask in it. I mean, I love it. I mean, it's a glowing look and experience, and you get the free food. Good free food as well that they've served to you at these Michigan football games before and then at halftime. So can't complain about that.
Now,
either.
Do you engage in some in-game conversation? Because sometimes I notice in the press box at Oakland games or at other situations where I've been credentialed, there's a little bit of chit-chat regarding, not cheering, but some chit-chat regarding, some players that are effective or not effective or just the quality of the game. Like, the shots are falling tonight or stuff like that. Do you at the Big House kind of talk, okay, O'Korn looks like he's on point today?
I talk some smack here and there, too. We do have some dialogue, so it's not completely silent up there in the press box between all the media members. Now, you might not know the person that you're next to, but you kind of get to know them, and I try to when I'm up there.
Did any of the media threaten to kick your ass?
Not yet. Luckily, no. I would imagine somebody...
You're not important then. You must not be important enough.
And I guess I'm not... And I know what you're referencing, Doc.
So, Vito, you must not be a VIP member yet if you're not getting threatened in the press box. So it's interesting stuff what goes on sometimes in the press box. But no, in all honesty, it's a well-deserved honor for you. I mean, you do a lot for the Michigan program. You do a lot for Top Cat sales in terms of promotion and the promotion of the Valiant brand and all that stuff too. So it'll be a great experience for you. And you definitely better keep me in the loop because I'll be maybe at that point in time, a couple beers deep.
I'm saying inebriated. Heavily, no, not you, Doc.
But are you concerned at all showing up 4 or 5 o'clock? By that point, people might have been drinking damn near 12 hours.
Oh, God. I mean, you start day drinking and actually early morning drinking at 9 a.m. or 8 or 7. You're right. You could have to deal with that. But you know what? When as a media member, you don't really experience all that. Now, I might go to my boss's, John Wangler's tailgate beforehand.
Oh.
So I might be there to experience everything. Because I don't always go every single Saturday because I don't get up early enough to get there and to experience all that. But for this game, I think I should.
You know what? Here's a free present. Take the selfie stick. Take some selfies with you. Take your phone. You know how to use it? You know how to
I was about to say I'll have to learn how to use it, but we can definitely utilize it. I think in a very nice atmosphere for it too, right?
The DSP selfie stick.
There you go.
Take some pictures with Mr. Wangler, with anybody else that represents Michigan, and highlight yourself because that's what it's about. That's what social media is about. And so I'm looking forward to your coverage. So you might be okay with future contests being night contests?
No.
You're not okay with it?
You know what? Because it's more about when you get home at night then. I'm dealing with Ann Arbor traffic, perhaps.
Oh.
At what time? 11:30? Midnight? Ooh. I'm getting home at 1:30, let's say. It's a late night, and I'm a late night person. I'm a night owl, per se, as my mom and dad like to say to me, and everybody kind of knows that about me. But to deal with the traffic on the way home that late at night, early into the morning on Sunday, I'm not really loving that too
Now
much.
You have goals. Okay, I don't want to hear from the Michigan athletes right away after the game. I want to hear from Jim Harbaugh. And at the same time, because of the fact that it's Michigan State, do you have access to go over to the other side and interview with Antonio?
Would you like me to go there? Actually,
yes.
You want me to go there instead of the Michigan?
No,
we'll do it right now.
No, if Michigan State wins the game, I want you to go into the press conference and ask Antonio
a question.
What does this mean?
Okay.
And what does it mean for the program?
I'll go there. I'll do it.
And then you could potentially ask, does this validate you because of all the talk last year having won 3 games? Stuff like that. Get yourself out there, or you could just even be, really braggadocious, or you could even put yourself out there and just take the mic and be like, Vito Churko, Detroit Sports Podcast, Top Cat sales rep, and just ask a really great question. And
But you know what? If you want me to go to the Michigan State press conference,
yes.
which they'll have going on. Well, I can't do both, though. No. But I'll do the MSU one because I don't ever do it. I'm fine with that.
Just go to the winning side, obviously.
Okay.
Go to the winning side. And then maybe you could,
But the losing side, you might get more fun out of it because you can ask a tough question to the coach that loses, and then you know how he's going to respond, whether it's D'Antonio or Harbaugh. And I'm kind of interested more in D'Antonio now. Now that you've talked to me about this, it's kind of sparked interest in going over there because I don't cover MSU games.
There you go.
Right?
And so there's an opportunity. Branching out, so at least he knows you. So for next year, when we try our best to get ourselves a credential for Michigan State football, that they maybe say, okay, and they know who you are. I can say, look, I got this guy Vito. He's a real journalist, and he's not just some wannabe like myself.
Not just a flamboyant fool with this jacket on. It's just a biased fan. Yeah.
No, that's not true. I am a biased / objective fan.
Ooh, so you're both. You are that good. But he is the DOC for a reason here at the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
Just don't lump me into the uneducated fan base. I do read. I do check into some things, Vito. But in terms of your coverage, ask some questions. Get out there. Be forceful. And like I said, the questions that you're going to ask are going to be just as relevant as other questions that are going to be asked from the media. It's just going to be, how do you feel about this? How do you feel about that? What was your take on this? And so I want to see your coverage. And potentially speaking, hey, if Michigan wins it, show up to the Michigan State press conference wearing the jacket.
That's what I mean. I mean, basking in all the glory of U of M winning. I'm just rubbing it into their faces. Yeah. Oh, wow. That would be something. That would be pretty bad of me, I think.
Yeah, in terms of showing up to a press conference, I think you got to kind of scale it back.
Yeah.
But so there is a little bit of conversation in the press box. You know how to get there. It's pretty straightforward, and you get all the stats, and it's pretty organized.
Yep. It's very organized. I love it because they give you all the stats.
Good Wi-Fi?
Great Wi-Fi. So I can't complain about that either. And I guess let's give a little plug to the Michigan podcast. Had John Wangler on, by the way, this week, sharing his thoughts about the U of M MSU contest. So I hope you guys did tune into that to find out what he has to say about tonight's game, too.
And all the other fine podcasts you can download every single day, DetroitSportsPodcast.com. thank you for your continued support. Without you, we wouldn't be able to continue to roll out these great podcasts, have great guests, and have everybody say, yeah, man, we want to talk to this Vito cat. We know he's doing some big things and asking all the right questions and pushing all the right buttons. So you will be in Ann Arbor, right there, front and center, press box. You'll do your thing. You'll cover the game, and you'll have a dual role, and you'll be responsible for providing a little bit of, like the color commentary for the main event, because, you know me, I'm just going to be wilding out and having a good time.
I'll be more objective in that circumstance tonight.
Exactly. So, great podcast, sir. Thanks to our guest, Ty Duffy from Awful Announcing. And you didn't give any credit. He does some contributing to The Athletic Detroit as well, the new venture.
He writes for various sites, and by the way, we have various sponsors here at the Detroit Sports Podcast Network. One of them is the Eastside Youth Sports Foundation. Follow them at www.esysf.com for all of their latest info.
And thanks to all the sponsors that work with Vito, from Top Cat Sales, the Detroit Sports Commission, the Eastside Youth Sports Foundation. Good stuff, sir.
And check out the Detroit Sports Commission at detroitsports.org, and we might have a new sponsor in the works here for next week's one of our podcasts on this very network too, Doc.
Vito doing his thing. Always appreciate it. You can follow Vito at Vito Jerome. Definitely check out our work at Detroit Podcast. Be one of the masses that shoots us a message during all the games. We read each and every tweet that's sent to us. Thanks, everybody. Vito, enjoy the game tonight. I look forward to the report next week. Really looking forward to the continued coverage of the Tigers and having fun with you and talking about some more positive things on Two Bad Hombres in the coming weeks.
Absolutely, Doc, and adios for now. Enjoy the game tonight.
One more thing before we get out of here. Steve has a beef with you in that we'll discuss further in further weeks too, because for now we're going to keep it. He says that potentially calling it Vito's VIP line is a little bit disrespectful, and we should call it DSP VIP line because it's about the team. The team. And you're acting like it's a much bigger thing, putting yourself above the team. And so, Steve, this one's for you. We're going to tease it. We'll get into it more in the coming weeks. So we made you listen to the entire podcast before we addressed it. But Vito will address it because maybe we will have to change Vito's VIP line if we do get a sponsor to the DSP VIP line.
That would be great to have one day. And Steve has called me a diva before. I think he's kind of hinting at the fact that I'm a diva once again, and maybe I'm just like Odell Beckham Jr. OBJ is a diva. Hey, he puts up big numbers, and we're hoping to do that with every single episode that we do of Two Bad Hombres.
Shout out to Steve Chimenti, a great supporter. We always love his messages, bantering back and forth. And if you want to be a supporter of Detroit Sports Podcast, we greatly appreciate it. See everybody next time.
Head spin, get it, get fly. I got 6 jobs. I don't care.